Welcome to another edition of Thunderdome. This is the second installment of Chapter 8, so this is 8.2, Motivation and Emotion. Let's get started. So let's talk about excess weight and obesity. So how is healthy weight determined? There are two formulas that you kind of need to know for AP Psych. One of them is what we're about to go over, right? So BMI, and the other one is IQ. So BMI. Body mass index, a numerical scale indicated by adult height in relation to weight, calculated as 703 times weight in pounds divided by height in inches squared. Okay? Generally, a healthy BMI falls between 18 and 25. Overweight is 25 to 29.9, and obese is 30 or greater. You're going to have to know those as well. So obese is a condition characterized by excessive body fat and a body mass index of above 30. One third of adults of the United States population are considered overweight. Another 1/3, 72 million, are considered medically obese. This has also become a problem globally. So 1.5 billion, over 1/8 of the world's population is overweight, and 500 million are medically obese. As people age, they gain excess weight, but over 70% of the United States adolescents and children are obese. 10% of ages 2 to 5 are obese, which is pretty astounding. Right here, this is where you can figure out your own BMI if you'd like. We'll talk about that in our in-person Zooms. Okay, factors involved in becoming overweight. Too little sleep, that's disrupting the hunger hormone. So in one study of healthy young men, sleep restricted to 4 hours a night for 2 nights. Leptin, the appetite suppressor, fell by 18%, and ghrelin, the appetite increaser, climbed by 24%. Obviously we have the positive incentive value, so highly palatable foods that just taste good. For me, you know, my crutch is double stuffed Oreos. If you put double stuffed Oreos in front of my face, I might not be hungry, but I'm going to eat at least one row of those double stuffed Oreos. And that's just because it tastes good. It gives me a dopamine hit every single time that I taste it. So rather than motivated by hunger, we are often motivated by pleasurable foods. Then we have supersize it syndrome, which is just overeating. So its caloric intake over the past 2 decades has increased 10% for men and 7% for women. You know, you just order too much food, or you eat too much in one sitting, and it's overeating. You know, it's the big plate that you fill up instead of the small plate. This is a problem that has definitely contributed to obesity factors here in the United States. Food is aplenty. And speaking of that, we have the cafeteria diet effect. So this is one of our terms. The cafeteria diet effect is the tendency to eat more when a wide variety of palatable foods is available. Look, good tasting food is out there, and it's pretty cheap. Of course, you know, you can drive down the road, and every mile pretty much you can run into a McDonald's and grab something. Look, that's just how it is. That is the cafeteria diet effect. When they are available to you, you might eat more, especially if it's pleasurable foods. Sedentary lifestyle, 1 in 5 live a sedentary lifestyle, which is engaging in less than 30 minutes of moderate activity on most days of the week. You know, imagine the desk job, right? You know, I worked in an engineering firm for 9 years. I sat behind a desk for 9 years, and I rarely moved unless I was moving to go get lunch. I worked downtown. I gained a significant amount of weight during that time. And then all of a sudden I started teaching, and teaching, well, before the pandemic. Teaching before the pandemic, you moved a lot. You were always using proximity, getting close to students, you know, moving around the room, making sure that everybody's doing the right thing, a lot of space to move around, all that kind of stuff. Guess what? Doesn't happen anymore, so I don't know. You know, I'm not saying that necessarily I am in a sedentary lifestyle, but the rules in place have kind of made that become what it is. BMR, so your basal metabolic rate, individual differences in lifespan changes. So people vary greatly in BMR. It varies greatly with gender. Women are 3 to 5% lower than men, and age. As you get older, less food is required to meet your basic energy needs. That's why old people just eat crackers all the time. And like, how in the world does that, sustain what you need calorically? I don't know. They just don't need that much food. So you have control out of all 6 of these things. You have control out of 5. BMR is outside of your control. But if you have control over 5, guess what? You have control over your weight. You can have a medical condition, yes, but in most normal circumstances, you do have control over it. You can do something about it. Have we been evolutionarily programmed to overeat? And you know what? The answer is yes. Again, we're talking about an ancient system, right? Our bodies are ancient in today's modern world. And what happens is, we've been biologically programmed, evolved to eat when it is available, because we don't know if we're ever going to eat again. That's what our bodies think. Now, we can frontal lobe that out of our brains for sure, but yeah, that's kind of how it is. So, numerous studies with rodents and rhesus monkeys say yes, eating less can help you live longer. So eating a restricted and balanced diet produces a variety of healthy benefits. So why do people overeat? For animals in the wild, food sources are often unpredictable. They're sporadic, and when they do find it, competition can be fierce for actually eating that food. If the animal waited for it to be hungry before it eats, it might not find food and end up starving or falling prey to another animal. Thus, eating patterns of animals have evolved to eat even if they are not hungry. Overeating when food is available ensures ample energy later. Remember, we can have this stuff called adipose tissue, fat stores in our body that can provide energy for us when we don't have food. Okay? According to the evolutionary psychologist, food is not too available to you in Western societies. Motivated to eat by the positive incentive value of highly palatable foods. That's what we in a modern world, in a Western world, experience. There is an adaptive pressure to eat a variety of foods. That is called the cafeteria diet effect, because consuming a variety of foods helps promote survival by ensuring that the nutrients, vitamins, and minerals are obtained. You can't just get that by one particular type of food. So instead of foraging for nuts, fruits, seeds, vegetables, we are now confronted with foraging for burgers, cheese fries, and Oreo milkshakes. They're going after cookout hard right there. These changes in the availability of high positive incentive foods has outrun our evolutionary stride, and we are almost defenseless against it. I struggle with it big time. I've considered myself, I don't think I have necessarily an eating disorder or anything like that, but I am an overeater. I overindulge, and it's hard. It's hard to frontal lobe that, decide not to do it, right? To control myself. It's a difficult thing. Factors involved in obesity. So the interaction of genetics and environment. So current research suggests that multiple genes on multiple chromosomes are involved in creating susceptibility to obesity. The key word there is susceptibility. So people with a family history of obesity are 2 to 3 times more likely than people with no such family history to become obese. More close you are genetically, the more your BMI will be similar. Genetics, however, is not destiny. Again, you have control over 5 of the 6 things that control your body weight. Environmental factors still play a role. So what is a high-risk environment for obesity? An environment characterized by easily obtainable, high-fat, high-calorie, palatable foods. That's what I would say was my problem when I worked at the engineering firm. I was downtown. I could go get pizza and hot dogs and burgers and fries and cheese sticks and all that kind of stuff whenever I wanted to. And that is a high-risk environment in my opinion. Leptin resistance, so having higher fat stores. So most people have higher blood levels of leptin, most obese people. So why don't these high levels of the leptin hormone reduce eating behavior and induce weight loss? Because remember, leptin is the appetite suppressor. Leptin resistance is what happens. So this is a condition in which higher than normal blood levels of the hormone leptin do not produce the expected physiological response. You can see it, it's just like drug tolerance. You get used to it, okay? You get used to the leptin. So dieting, we've got BMR resistance to maintaining weight loss. Weight cycling, so repeated cycles of dieting, weight loss, and weight regain, also called yo-yo dieting. And then we have the human body doesn't want to lose weight. So it's kind of hard to trick the body into losing weight. So you have to get that negative energy balance and intake less calories than you're expending. That would cause weight loss. And then things like high fat, low carb diets can also induce weight loss. Dopamine centers of the brain, so food can become an addiction, just like dopamine enhancing drugs like cocaine. Look at these dopamine centers of the brain for a normal brain, and then cocaine addicted brain, and then a brain of an obese person. So we have the substantia nigra right here, and that's in a normal brain. This is a cocaine addicted brain, not on cocaine. Okay, so this is a brain addicted to cocaine, but not currently on cocaine. You can see that dopamine isn't there. It's not being produced as much as this. And then same here, possibly even worse for an obese person. If they're not eating, they don't have that dopamine hit like a normal person does. All right, psychological needs is motivators. So let's get into Abraham Maslow a little bit right here. Obviously, we know he's one of the founders of humanistic psychology. He's also the creator of the hierarchy of needs. We're going to look at that right now. So as you move up the hierarchy, you're ultimately motivated to reach self-actualization, so the very top. This is defined as the full use and exploitation of talents, capacities, and potentialities. This is getting to your best self. It's very vague, almost unmeasurable by scientific standards, and quite possibly maybe unattainable. So your lowest levels of the hierarchy of needs are physiological and safety needs. So those are fundamental biological and safety needs. You need these things. They're important. To feel safe is definitely important. You have to live, right? So that's the red. That's being alive. And then you have to find safety to continue survival. That's the yellow part. That is the lowest levels. Then you move up to the yellow and the green level, which is love and belonging, and then esteem. So these are social and psychological growth needs. Again, we are social animals. We tend to grow cognitively throughout our lifespan. We've looked at that through Piaget. Criticisms for our man Abraham Maslow up here. Self-actualization is an inborn motivator and might not be attainable. You might not have the environment to do so. Imagine if nobody supported you to become self-actualized, right? To become your best self. And you had to rely on yourself to do all of that. That'd be a difficult thing for any human to experience. So in general, he championed that we must fulfill basic needs before we move to the more complicated needs. Okay, so here's a little Abraham Maslow all in one place. Again, here's hierarchy of needs. It kind of goes through everything that you need. Moving up to self-actualization, which contains morality, creativity, spontaneity, problem solving, lack of prejudice, acceptance of facts. So self-actualization is defined as a person's motivation to reach his or her full potential. As shown in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, a person's basic needs must be met before self-actualization can be achieved. If you look at these characteristics of self-actualized people, you have realism and acceptance, spontaneity, problem centering, autonomy, you have the joystick to your own life, continued freshness of appreciation, and then peak experiences, which is an interesting thing. Self-actualized people commonly have peak experiences or moments of intense ecstasy, wonder, and awe during which their sense of self is lost or transcended. You have these moments of clarity, right? These moments of amazement. These moments of, maybe these moments of transition, right? Peak experiences where you say, my life will never be the same after this moment. Those are very important for a self-actualized person. Psychological needs as motivators. So we have the Self-Determination Theory right here by Edward Dietschy and Richard Ryan. So it's a theory that optimal human functioning can occur only if the psychological needs for autonomy, competence, and relatedness are satisfied. So you have to get autonomy, so to be self-determined, right, to have your own, again, autonomy, having the joystick to your own life, the need to determine, control, and organize one's own behavior and goals so that they are in harmony with one's own interests and values. And then we have competence, the need to learn and master appropriately challenging tasks, to feel competent, to feel able to complete a task. And then relatedness, the need to feel attached to others and experience a sense of belongingness, security, and intimacy. We are social animals, like I said. It's important for us to feel that. So in a supportive, social, psychological, and physical environment, an individual will pursue interests, goals, and relationships that tend to satisfy these psychological needs. This is self-determination theory all in one place. So if you experience these things, or if you can get these things going in your life, you would experience volition, motivation, and engagements, and that would foster enhanced performance, persistence, and creativity. It's a theory, self-determination theory. Psychological needs as motivators, so we have intrinsic motivation versus extrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation is the desire to do something from within, right? You don't need an external motivator like money or praise or anything like that. You want to do it because you want to do it. And then extrinsic motivation, external factors or influences such as rewards, consequences, social expectations. Those are the things that are dictating your behavior through motivation. So here's some examples of the A and B student in AP Psychology. We have the student A who is intrinsically motivated, and student B who is extrinsically motivated. Let's look at student B first. Student B wants to boost their GPA to become competitive for college and scholarships. Student B's parents also forced and pressured their child to take difficult classes in addition to honors and AP courses. Student B works hard to achieve an A in the course, but it only matters for their GPA. Student B forgets most of the material after the course is over because it only mattered to get a number. Student A is intrinsically motivated. Student A wants to learn about psychology because they like to learn new information. Once enrolled in the course, student A finds the course difficult but decides to stick with it. After taking the last module test, student A feels satisfied with their performance, not because of the grade, but because they gave it their best effort. Student A retains most of the material after the course is over. I've seen a lot of student Bs change into student As, and I've seen a lot of student Bs just be student Bs. The only reason you took this is because it was going to look good on a college application, which is cool. But I like to change student Bs into student As during the course of my curriculum. All right, here's the thematic apperception test. We're going to talk about this in person on our Zooms and in class. But we're going to have a little activity. So in this activity, you're going to describe the event in the picture, the developments that led up to the event, the thoughts and feelings of the people in the picture, and then the outcome of the story. So what the thematic apperception test is it's a test that shows you a vague picture, and you create a story that includes these four things, okay? And in that story, it's going to reveal possibly what you're motivated by and some personality traits. It's very subjective. It's used in psychoanalysis or psychodynamics, psychotherapy, just to get, it's almost like a conversation starter with a therapist. So here's one of the pictures. It's a vague picture. You don't know what's going on, but you get to create the story. Here's another picture. Again, vague. You know what kind of is going on here. You know the setting, but you're not quite sure about the backstory. And same here. This might be triggering for some musically inclined people. But yeah, a young boy, it looks like, who is staring at a violin. So results, what you do is you would write down your answers to your, create your stories. And you would look at your results and see if you can pick out themes that the story reveals dealing with your attitudes, motives, fantasies, wishes, inner conflicts, and view of the outside world. Those things might leak out through these thematic apperception tests. What always leaks out in mine is humor, concern for others. So the story structure typically reflects the subject's feelings, assumptions about the world, and the underlying attitude of optimism or pessimism. So this is often used for personality assessment techniques. Competence and achievement motivation. Competence motivation is the desire to direct your behavior toward demonstrating competence and exercising control in a situation. So these are like things that you would be able to pick out of a thematic apperception test. So, are you concerned with competence, being competent, being able? And then achievement motivation, the desire to direct your behavior toward excelling, succeeding, or outperforming others at some task. Maybe you feel like you have to be the best at everything, or you want to be top tier, or whatever it is. That could be achievement motivation, so that you could be just motivated by the thought of achieving. And then, again, we already went over the thematic apperception test. TAT scoring system is called the need for achievement, so it looks like that. Very subjective. And then we have power motivation, the urge to control or influence the behavior of other people or groups. So maybe you're motivated by power or having power over people, and that could come out in the achievement thematic apperception test. Achievement motivation and culture. Individualistic cultures exude the need to achieve personal individual successes rather than the success of the group. You can see individualistic cultures as the yellow here. And then the red would become considered collectivistic cultures. And they need to achieve as a group. So they're more inclined to celebrate and be prideful of others instead of themselves. And enhancing the social standing of his or her family is more acceptable than enhancing one's own social standing. Self-efficacy is a great term. So it's the degree to which a person is convinced of his or her ability to effectively meet the demands of a particular situation. It's how confident you are in completing a certain task. So if you have an optimistic sense of self-efficacy, you will approach a difficult task as a challenge to be mastered. Exert strong motivational effort and look for creative ways to overcome obstacles. If you see yourself as competent and capable, you are more likely to strive for higher personal goals. People tend to avoid challenging situations or tasks that they believe exceed their capabilities. If self-doubt occurs, motivation dwindles. So again, we look for these things called mastery experiences. And those are experiencing success at moderately challenging tasks in which you have to overcome obstacles to persevere. There's a great book out there. It's a book about Stoicism. It's by a guy named Ryan Holiday. It's called The Obstacle is the Way. And he pretty much